Welcome to the first round of the UCI Mountain Bike Marathon World Cup of 2024, here in Nové Mmaesto Na Moravě. As our elite athletes prepared themselves for what lay ahead, the sun shone brightly, drying out the previous days of heavy rain. The race would take in two loops of 60 kilometres, finishing on the XCO start loop in the famous biathlon arena, with plenty of the XC rock and route sections to keep things exciting. Our elite women was set off early in the morning with familiar faces Leila Cincevic, Janina Verst and Vera Lusa taking to the start line with their game faces on. Buff Megamo's team, Rosa Van Doren, took a commanding lead, setting the early pace, but Lusa and Cincevic were hot on her heels, pushing the tempo, with Janina Verst followed closely behind at the first time check. Van Doren, Cincevic and Verst would be separated from the pack after the demanding climb deep into the first 60-kilometre loop. Shortly after, our elite men took to the start line.
Yeah, super excited to be here back in Nové Mmaesto. We had the last year the first World Cup also here in Nové Mmaesto, and so we know the course quite well. It looks a bit muddy out there, but I'm looking forward to a fast and furious race. I hope to not overpace in the beginning because position is important, but to have the energy after 120 k's is also important, and so it's a bit of gambling in which position you are and saving some energy, but also don't be too far off.
After last year's win here, I will try my best to do it again, but yeah, it will be really hard because the riders, all the best riders are here, so yeah, it will be a big fight.
This one is always really challenging because high speed, a lot of rider. Weather looks not so bad right now, so hope for some sun during the 4.5 hours of racing.
For sure the longest rock garden will be really important. You cannot win the race there, but you can for sure lose it there. So that will be the key point of the race.
The pace was hot from the start, and the first time check was Jakob Hartmann who took the lead, with favourite Fabian Riemensteiner sitting in 12th place. The technical rocky descents would test and thin the pack, allowing Philipp Edel, Fabian Riemensteiner and Wout Alleman to slip away from a leading group.
Yeah, we are now waiting in the feed zone 5, and obviously from the feed zone all of the team managers and guys are just keeping an eye on the live tracking. And as far as for our team, all three of our guys are in the front group, which is quite big at the moment. I think it's over 20 guys, and I think now in the second half we will see more splits. But in general, this race kind of favors into like a bunch riding, tactical riding, and I think we will have to wait until the very last kilometers for the final decision. All of our riders have chosen the full suspension bikes because the course is quite some rough sections, rooty sections with and then rock gardens. So there was no question other than choosing the Canyon Lux.
Yeah, we have 2 girls that are in the front lead, Janina and Rosa, and also we have 4 boys that are still on the front group. So at the start of the second lap, we are really happy. How is it going? Let's see in the finish line. For this really long race, we have prepared a special setup with 120 forks because there are a lot of rocks and roots here in Czech Republic, and also a lot of feeding from sponsor. We are using a lot to feed the athletes during the 5 hours that we expect for the women and 4 for the boys.
Yeah, we have 3 riders in the race. Simon Schneller is at the moment in front in the first group. Our Frenchie Axel is just behind it some seconds, and Alban Lakata, our big ex-world champion, is around 30th place, and it's quite tricky with a lot of rock gardens and roots. And we came 3 days ago, checked everything, and did the bikes ready for today.
At the halfway point, 60 kilometres in, the elite women's standings were looking like this. Rosa van Doren taking an early lead, followed closely by Janina Verst in second, with Vera Lusa in third, just 2 seconds behind. And in the elite men's, things were still wide open. The leading group were knitted together and kept up an unrelenting pace. Philip Hader was in the lead of the pack, and Ravensteiner back in 11th place at the halfway point. Heading into the second half of the race, Cincevic, Lusa and Van Doren pushed on and increased the gap to the main pack. The familiar grounds of the previous loop would allow Cincevic to shine, smashing the rocky climbs and descents to keep her lead, but with Lusa and Van Doren hungry for the win and following closely, the day was far from won. In the men's, there was an all-out battle. Ravensteiner, despite his best efforts, could not break away on his own and found Porro and Miller on his wheel. The pace was relentless, and after another testing climb and descent littered with rocks, they separated themselves from the pack. Our last kilometres of racing would take our elite athletes to familiar grounds, as they raced the start loop of the Exio race that would take place later in the day. Littered with technical descents and even more technical and punishing climbs, this is where the race for the win would be decided. As they approached the finish loop, Cincevic was in the lead, Lusa was in second, Van Doren was in third. Cincevic and Lusa stayed bar to bar until the last punishing climb, where a stumble from Cincevic would allow Lusa to get ahead. In the elites men's, Ravensteiner kept his lead no matter what the course threw at him. Samuel Porro kept him close in the battle, with Alex Miller following closely. Even after over 100 kilometres of racing, it all came down to the final kilometres. Last year's champion Cincevic put on a show, but it was Vera Lusa who had best her for the win. Rosa van Doren would finish in third place.
we were around 6 riders going to the second lap, and then eventually it ended up being 3. And after the rock garden, the big one, not this one in the finish loop, I got a little gap and I thought I might as well just try pull it through, but Leila was so strong, she just rode me back in, so I was like 20 kilometers in the front, and then she came back. And then I knew it would come down to the tactics in the finish loop that we did through the cross-country course here. And I know I'm technically quite good, and I know my sprint is good as well, so I was then just hoping on that. But that climb up to the top of the Cannondale section really hurt. And then coming up the Ruti section again, and your legs are just burning after 5.5 hours of racing. But then I got a gap there, I could ride most of it, and then I just flew, and I just knew from here I just have to put the hammer. I think we were all like, oh, what? They're putting a cross-country section into our race, especially at the end, which is quite hard. But I think it suited me because I'm good at the technical stuff. I rode it with my friend who races cross-country. She showed me the best line, so that was amazing, and that definitely helped today.
As Pora and Miller battered their way down the finish loop, it was neck and neck for second place. But it would be reigning champion overall, Raven Wierenstaller, who would take the first win of the season with style. Miller would take second place after attacking on the bridge leading to the finish, with Poro having to settle for third.
It was a really tough race, but yeah, in this technical part I can make a little difference just in the first loop. I was maybe one of the only guys who can ride really smart all the downhill, and yeah, a lot of guys was walking, and I think this was a big advantage. It was a perfect group, was also my teammate inside, and then we had a good collaboration, and yeah, then we fight on the last, on the start loop from the cross country, we fight for the win. It was a super hard attack in the end, and I can manage to win.
And our overall championship looked unsurprisingly like this, with Vera Lusa in first place and Cincevic left hungry for more in second. We have Rabensteiner sitting in a familiar position in first place, followed by Alex Miller and Italy's Samuel Poro. What a fantastic start to the race season here in Nové Mmaesto Na Moravě, and join us next time in Město for the second round of the UCI Mountain Bike Marathon World Cup in June. We'll see you there.